Welcome to episode 138 and happy almost New Year if you're listening to this on the day it drops. Today's guest is Alexis Lancaster, also known as the Lex or sometimes my Lex. Lex is a digital genius superhero who I was lucky enough to meet in 2018 and lock her into a lifetime of working for me at Fire Rescue Wellness. Lex is a contractor. She's not an employee, but she is an amazing, incredible resource for me. And I just wanted her to share her story because I think that sometimes we feel stuck in places and we're never truly stuck. We have skills and we have opportunities to do wonderful things with our lives. And Lex is just a shining example of that. Alexis, I love you. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the episode this week. Please give us a rating and review and share with a friend. Thank you for joining me on the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. I find the research and resources and then provide the fire service with the so what, now what, to ensure the health and well-being of every member of our profession. Together, let's thrive.
Can you move it?
I don't know. I've never had to
you can drag it.
I can drag it. See, this is why
I just dragged myself because I want to. There we go. I think you're on the other side because my video is on first.
Oh, I got you. So see, these are the reasons everyone needs a Lex.
You used to say that.
I always say that. Everyone needs a Lex. I want to make sure that I'm super respectful of your time because I know you are a busy lady.
You're good.
I'm good.
I'm here.
Oh, I got some Lex Lancaster singing. Ladies and gentlemen, I am on the recording with the one, the only Lex Lancaster. Say hello to the people.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited for this because here's the deal. It's my freaking podcast and I can do what I want. And what I want to do for every new year is have people that are super special to me. So first year I had Shante, the movement maestro. Last year I had Jeremiah, my sound engineer. And this year I have Lex, my right and left hand woman.
I'm excited to be here.
You're so adorable. I love you. I'm a lazy podcast host. I make my guests introduce themselves, but I will ask the questions. So the first question is, who is Lex?
That's a tough question. I'll just give the whole gist. So I am AZ's right and left hand, which she said, but I am also a physical therapist or trained physical therapist. I don't practice anymore. I am a previous PT clinic owner. I have my own online business called Lex Lancaster Creative Co. And that is where I help health and wellness business owners with all things tech. So I typically will say everything except for Facebook and Google ads, but now I have an asterisk that says yet. So more to come on that. But other than that, personal stuff, I guess I live in California with my partner, the movement maestro, Shante, Moose and Rupert. Moose is somewhere in my office. I think I moved her beds and she's still laying in the corner on the floor. So I have Moose. What else? I play a lot of volleyball. I like to cook. I feel like that's about it.
I feel like there's so much more, but that summarizes it.
I know.
We're going to get into our relationship in a little bit, but I want to know what sets your soul on fire.
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, I feel it's twofold for me. So the one thing is there's a feeling that I've always had when you help someone. So it happens in my online business now. It's like when you're on a coaching call or you're working with a client and you find the solution, you make the impossible possible. That feels amazing to me. I love that. And it's the same feeling that I get when I teach. So if I teach, whether it's inside my online business and courses and live webinars, or because I'm an adjunct professor for Utica College. So if I'm teaching there and it's like the light bulb moment, right? Like that type of feeling. And then, honestly, It's that. It's the happiness, the light bulb. I really do love it because it plays out in physical therapy as well. It's like when you're treating a patient and they're like, "Oh my god, I can do this thing again. You're right." And it's like, "Oh, you're kidding, right?" Like, of course. No, but really it's like that light bulb moment of people being like, "Oh my god, you just helped me. Thank you so much. This feels really good. I understand. You taught me something." Like, honestly, it's such a great feeling to have. And I know that you get that because, you teach as well. So I know that you can understand it.
And I am on the giving end of many of Lex's, good feelings because she is bailing my shit out all of the time. It's
You got to give
incredible.
yourself a little more credit, AZ.
I'm learning. I'm learning. Sometimes, though, I just can't do it. And the last question related to that one is, how are you changing the world?
Well, I always say I like to be something, part of something that is much bigger than myself. So, if I build a website for a physical therapy practice that then helps, however many people, that to me is, just the feeling I have. It's just like that is incredible. And I feel like that to me feels like I'm changing the world. I will also say that I change a lot of people's world when I bring Moose out in public because they get to pet a dog and they smile, which I know you can relate to. And I feel like that is something that I really love. Uh, so yeah, I feel like those two things.
Ladies and gentlemen, I finally get to meet Moose in person in
Oh
a
my God,
couple
I
weeks.
didn't even think about that.
I get to meet Moose in person.
Yes, you're right. You have not met Moose in person.
Uh,
Yes.
and
You're
Moose
going to
can
be
be my
very
daily dose of
surprised
dog. I'm going to be surprised. Tell me why.
because most people are like, oh, she's actually much. So I actually think she's smaller in person. Other people think she's bigger. A lot of people say she's skinnier. Like she looks
Oh,
like a big, thick dog and she's actually quite lanky. Like she's kind of built like me. So people are oftentimes like, oh, I didn't know that this is what she looked like.
I'm being transported back to one of her costumes where her so
The
short
football
autograph,
player.
so
Mm-hmm.
short,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
poor
those legs,
Moose,
man, they're too long.
and so are yours.
That too.
All
That
right,
too.
Lex and I, it was such a fortuitous relationship because I was in sort of the floundering stages of my business, trying to just half ass things and piecemeal shit together. And I met Lex, and she did so many incredible things for me. Designed my original logo, built my original website. More recently, she took all of my photographs for my new website. We relaunched a new brand, but she said she was a physical therapist. And so, my question for you, Lex, is there are people out there that I think are doing jobs that they don't necessarily want to do because they're either scared to leap or they're like, I spent so much money on this. I'm already so invested. Let's debunk all that crap. Let's do it.
Yeah. So yeah, such a can of worms. The biggest thing that I have to acknowledge is that I have a lot of buy-in and I also have a lot of success in my online business building websites for health and wellness professionals because I am one of them. I do feel like I have to give credit where credit is due. And that degree has, while it was $1 billion, and I think I will forever be in debt, it's one of those things where I don't think I would be where I am without it for many things, honestly. But that gets me a lot of credibility in the field because I genuinely can say that I want to say I'm one of the only PTs that are doing this for other PTs from what I know, as far as like being like a one-stop shop, right? So outside of that, I know and I'm privy to past or previous, current, whatever clients who have worked with people outside of that realm. And it just didn't go well because I don't understand their business. So with that being said, like, yes, I'm a trained physical therapist. I stopped treating completely because my business grew to a point where it was like, it made sense. I will say though that, for 2.5, 3 years, I really did work a lot of jobs. Like I did a lot of different things. So I was a full-time PT at two different places, which you're probably doing math in your head and being like, how the hell do you manage that? One of them was a pediatric practice. So the pediatric practice, it was only 20 treating hours and the rest was documentation. So it was still a full-time job. And then I owned a physical therapy practice, also full-time, which if you owned a PT clinic or if you are part of one, I've gone to one, like it's a lot of work to begin with. And I was also owning my online business at the same time, as well as adjunct teaching and working at another physical therapy practice. So I also have to say, like, I did the grind in a very different way because I know if you are a PT listening to this, or if you're familiar with PT, I never had to work in like what they call like a mill PT clinic. I did for clinical, but not for my practice years. So I never really had that experience, if you will. So it was grinding in a different way. And I will say, I I can say with my full chest that I love treating very particular people, very specific people. I have a very specific population I like to work with. I really do like pediatrics as well. But I will say that the joy that I get from having time flexibility in my online business is something that is completely irreplaceable in having to go to a clinic every day. And I will say that I don't want to say I hated it because I didn't absolutely hate it. I really didn't. But I know that it wasn't serving me in the best way possible. And the only thing that I can really, push you toward or push you with is just saying that one, you don't have to stay anywhere. You really don't have to. And life is way too short to like wake up every day and hate where you work because you spend so much time there. So there are solutions all over the place. Two, if you get a degree and then you end up working in the field, it's okay to say you don't like it. It's expensive, obviously, but it's one of those things, again, where life's too short and you might as well cut the cord before you're 80 years old. I mean, it's tough. Like, I get it. I understand. And it's one of those things where you made the decision. So you feel like you have to stick with it, a sunk cost situation, but that's not the case. And then I also look at people like you, AZ, who you had a career that depended on you staying there for a certain amount of time. And for those people, you got to find happiness somewhere else if you're not happy. I'm not saying you were or were not happy, AZ. What I'm saying is that if you find yourself in a situation where you are bound by time and it just makes sense to stay because that's what you have to do, whether you're in the military or, first responder, you can find joy elsewhere. And I know it's tough because, yes, you are spending a lot of time at work, but if you're spending a lot of time at work hating it, and then you also go home and hate it, that's now 24 hours a day that you don't like. Whereas you could be spending 10 maybe per day, depending on your shifts, liking it. So I don't think anything's permanent. I think it's really tough to switch. I think it's for lack of better terms, it's very don't burn the ships. Don't quit your full-time job until you have another job. Like, let's not be silly here. Let's make sure we can feed ourselves. But
And your dog.
but it's worth it. Like, I will say it's definitely worth the initial stress. But until you can replace your income with something else, if you are planning on doing that, my vote is to always stay with a full-time job. Hence why I did that while this was being built. So you're never stuck. There's always a solution in some way, shape, or form. And if you are time bound, you can find joy or try to find joy somewhere else.
I feel so lucky because I got to be kind of like have a front row seat to all of this. I wasn't there from the very, very beginning, but pretty close to the beginning. And well, let's just use my logo as an example. Lex designed my first logo. And then when it was time to design my second logo, I remember her telling me, like, I can do it. I just don't really want to. This isn't my thing anymore. So let's break that down first of all. How in the world did you, a physical therapist, teach yourself how to design logos in the first place?
I always struggle with this question. Do you want me to answer that one or do you have a second?
No, answer that one if you can.
I always struggle with it because I have to say that I have been like this since a little kid. Like I was the kid, like I always have to preface this with, I played sports as well. So I played sports. I didn't like sit in my parents' basement and like build computers, but I was the person who was like taking computers apart and putting them together back when we had like the computer, and you had floppy disks that go in there, and like it made noises when it started, like all of that. Like I would take those apart and put them together. And like the weirdest thing is, in school or at home, if something happened with tech, it was just me who would fix it. And I can't, like, I do not know why. I genuinely cannot say I don't know why that is. It feels to me, I am just, I want to say I'm lucky. I genuinely can tell you, I never took like a computer course that taught me how to do this. I will say that when it comes to tech, if it takes someone an hour to learn something, it takes me 2 minutes. Like I'm very, very quick with learning tech and how to operate tech. And granted, like I understand everything can be Googled, but for whatever reason, most things come natural to me. And I can't blame it on any one thing. So the logo design specifically, I've been in Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator since I was, Lord, probably like 13 years old, and just messing around in there. Right. Like you do, for me, it was like, if I do something enough, it's easy for me. I'm lucky. I'm lucky to be very techie.
And I feel like the tech is a little bit afraid of you. So, for example, I got a message the other day. It said, your Zoom account has been disconnected from your Squarespace or your Acuity scheduling. And I thought, I've got this. I logged onto Squarespace. I logged onto the Acuity scheduling. I went to the automations or whatever, the section. I was on the Zoom section, and I went to authorize reconnecting, and it said, info at Fire Rescue Wellness, you do not have the credentials. I do not have the credentials to authorize this. And I was like, well, that's weird because this is my website. Literally my website. And so I popped it over to Lex, and I think the computer was just scared of her because it worked for Lex.
What can I say?
I don't know. Well, the thing that I am so proud of you for is the fact that then 3 years later, 5 years later, whatever it was, math is so hard at this point, you told me, I don't want to design your logo. Like, that's not my thing anymore. So tell me about that metamorphosis from I will and can do everything to I will do what I want to do.
Yeah. So, obviously, when you start a business, and when I started my business, I knew that I could do a lot of things, and I liked doing a lot of things. I really did like it. Over time, I just found what I liked more. So I could still design a logo if I wanted to. I don't hate it. It's just I also don't find the thrill from it. So for me, like the thrill, if you will, like today I got off a coaching call and I was like, I was amped up. I was like, this was so good. I provided a lot of value. I hope that person is so, grounded, rooted after that call. It felt amazing. That type of feeling is what I chase. So if I find my body doesn't get that with doing something, I may do it once and be like, that was nice. I tried it on for size and now I'm done. Or it takes a couple different clients. Like I will say, I probably designed, if I had to count logos, probably between like 10 to 15 total for paying clients. And I just found that the process for me, it just it didn't light me up. And for me, I do think that part of this is like, once your business, you become successful, right? You may find that your time is more valuable doing other things. And I just found, whether it makes you happier or you're faster at it, you're better at it, whatever that is. But for me, I found that during the logo design process, it was just more draining than thrilling and exciting. And so when something feels like that, I just don't do it anymore. And I happily refer out elsewhere. And I say the same thing with clients, right? So if someone contacts me who's not a health and wellness professional, I could build their website, but I'm not going to because it's not my specialty, right? So learning your no, whether that's what you don't like to do, what you're not as good at as someone else is, the type of person you don't want to work with, like we all know that energy. And if you have the red flags go up, it's probably not best to say, well, I can make it work, So I will say learning your no. And obviously that comes once again from the lack of urgency. And when your business is successful, or when you don't burn the ships and you have income coming in and you're not dependent on this business providing food for you, you can do that. And you can say, like, actually, this doesn't feel good. I'm going to go a different route, or I'm going to say no. And it's okay.
I want to hit on the burn the ships for just a second because I feel like that was from the F insurance book, right?
Yeah, I think it was originally Danny Matei's line.
Like his analogy. So basically, he talks about a side hustle, which is what Lex did, versus a burn the ship situation. And the analogy is like, we're exploring new lands and we're going to land and we have to make this work.
Yep.
So we're going to burn the ships because we have to make it work. And it's just this sense of urgency that, oof, it's scary. And your dog might starve to death.
Yes. Yes.
Before I go on to ego, which is going to be my next question or related to my next question, I do want to acknowledge that although Lex doesn't do logos anymore, she recently did a logo for me. So I'm so grateful for our Women's Tactical Human Performance Summit. So
I got you.
Thank you, Lex. That was amazing. I have a feeling that sometimes people's egos get in the way, meaning you just said there might be someone out there better than you at doing something and let them do it. Whereas most people would say, I can do it, and I'm the best at it. How did you sort that out in your mind?
Abundance mindset was not something that I would say, I don't want to say came natural, but I wasn't exposed to that way of thinking until really when I was exposed to the online business land through like Shantae and Jill, etc. And I feel like I actually will say it happens in physical therapy as well. It's like if you are not a specialist in this area, or you don't know what you're doing, refer out. And for me, I do think we can all understand the value of having someone who is experienced in what you want to happen or do, or the result you want. We can honestly take a step back and say, yes, like, of course I want that. I don't want someone who's not experienced doing this thing with me, if that's what I want. Right. So sorting it out for me, as far as, I would rather refer out to someone who is better than me. I can say with my full chest, I'm sitting here thinking about multiple people who tell me on discovery calls, the only thing they'll say is, one, we rise by lifting others. And they'll say, wow, thank you so much for referring me out. That's so kind. And like that, I know that you have my best interest at heart. And I'm like, yes, of course I do. Because could I do it? Sure. Am I the best choice? No. And I also will say, this past weekend, we had a volleyball coach who said, let everyone be great. And I was like, yeah, let everyone be great. It's like, that is, yes. So for me, it's just understanding that if someone gets a good experience, or has a good experience, gets a good result with someone else because you referred them there, that person is going to be forever grateful to you as well. It's not just about who performs a service. It's about how they found that person in the first place. So yes, I will say, even if I'm full, if I have no availability and I have to refer out for that person, they will honestly say, like, thank you so much for the referral. I'll be back. Right. So it's like, you're not losing people by referring out. If anything, you're gaining respect. And that's how I've always seen it.
I love that. Lex, how would you describe, is what I'm trying to say. Words are so hard. How would you describe your perfect avatar client?
I will say a couple things. So one, not the urgency can't be there. I will say that that's a red flag for me. If someone comes onto a discovery call and they need something done within X amount of time so that they can make more money, get more leads, what have you. And by X amount of time, I mean tomorrow, next week. Just understanding the process. I will say another ideal client is someone who is just like, yes, I respect your process, right? So I oftentimes will have people, they'll already be my ideal client before they log on to a call with me, because they likely know me from some platform, whether it's Instagram or they're already on my newsletter, what have you. And they will just say, like, yes, I have been following you. I've been reading your stuff. And honestly, what they'll usually say is, they'll say, this is just like listening to your podcast. Like, you're saying the same thing. And I'm like, yes, because the same thing is, I'm not lying to you, right? So I'm going to say the same thing across the board. So someone who, has done the research, is ready to invest, uh, honestly trusts me as a service provider, because my one of my, top values is I'm not trying to convince you of anything. So if you want to come and work with me, amazing. If you believe in the process, amazing. If not, like take as much time as you want. Like, I will be here when you're ready, right? So someone who respects the process, no urgency. And honestly, I will say a health and wellness provider in some way, shape, or form. I will say I work with a couple people outside of that, but they are very special situations in which I'm not really responsible for their website copy. I'm not responsible for building their website. It's more or less like one-off stuff. So aside from that, like I feel like the biggest one is that urgency. And I will also say, willing to invest, but not just in me. It's more or less the software, right? So like I don't love having to convince people that they need to buy certain things. Just not because I want them to spend money, but because I'm like, hey, look, if you want this outcome, if you want this to be set up correctly, you have to buy these certain things. And they're like, well, is there a workaround? Is there a free thing? And I just can't get behind doing things twice. And I know that if you do it this way, you're going to have to redo it in the future. So you're paying me, but then you have to pay me again or pay someone else again. And now you're wasting money. Right. So I just, again, that goes back to respecting the process as well. But yeah, I feel like I can't say that I don't have anyone who's not my ideal client, and I'm very blessed right now. Like I can't be like, that person wasn't not an ideal client. Very, very lucky.
What I'm hearing from you, Lex, is that you do things right and you do things right the first time, which I appreciate so much. I appreciate that so much, especially when we're looking at building courses and email lists and all of those good things. Can you tell me a potentially maybe a misstep? Because from looking from outside in, I'm looking like Lex has worked her tail off and she has put everything in place perfectly to yield this life where she has her lifestyle based business and everything's perfect. Like that's my viewpoint from the outside. But I'm sure there's been a couple missteps. Anything that you would warn people against?
Yeah. I will say figuring out your schedule and scheduling fun in first has been a game changer for me, and also batching tasks. So I have learned a lot of the things that I know from Shantae. So giving credit where credit is due, of course. But prior to January of 2023, I will say that my schedule was all over the place, meaning like I was fitting things in. I didn't have a consistent schedule. I was taking calls, Zoom calls Monday through Friday, and I was just exhausted. And I think I never really talked about that publicly, but because it was also like it was during the same time a lot of other things going on in my life. So I never really said like, I am tired. um, but I would say January of 2023 was when I originally switched to my first rendition of this is me setting a boundary for myself, where I'm going to have live calls Tuesday, Thursday only. Monday, Wednesday will be my work days, like my back end work days, and Fridays are my flex day. And I will say, like, that schedule has been really, really nice for me, only because my weeks are very predictable and I can say no easily, because by saying yes to something, I am always saying no to something else. And so if someone says, hey, can you take a 9 o'clock meeting? I know that I'm saying no to my normal morning routine. Now I'm bitter, I'm frustrated. I'm not going to do that. So for me, setting that schedule up in a way that works for you and batching your time, that was a total game changer. The other big thing I will say is figuring out how you work, because I see a lot of I used to think that I had to force myself into this box of like I can't remember what the 15-minute timer. Pomodoro. Is that what it's called?
I don't
Anyway, the
know.
15-minute timer, we work for 15 minutes, we break for 15 minutes. You have call after call after call after call, and you fit 12 into a day because that's how you do it. Like, I just used to think I had to fit into a box of all the systems used by other people. And when I learned that none of that worked for me because I wasn't doing what I needed, I realized, like, oh, I have to take full control over how I want my week to look, and then giving yourself the permission to change it. Because again, like now, like in hindsight, the schedule that I developed in 2023, now in 2024, I'm still doing the same thing. In 2025, I'm changing it again to have Mondays be free in the afternoon for personal appointments, because I was trying to like fit going into the doctor's or fit going to the dentist in random times, and now my brain is scattered. So figuring out, like, honestly, it's finding the schedule, seeing what works, and then just changing it if it doesn't. And I understand. I speak from a place of, yes, I'm privileged to have like all of this time flexibility, and clients that are just understanding, and clients that they get it, right? So I work with really, really good people. I genuinely work with great people. And when you have clients like that, they get it. They're like, oh, you don't like, if I have a head, I texted you yesterday. I was like, we'll
Yep.
see where my head is, because I had, long story short, I dove for volleyball and I have whiplash. Like, my neck is killing me right now. So I was like, we'll see where my head's at. I might finish your work tomorrow. So like knowing that I get to work with people who are very understanding is also a blessing. But yeah, it's the scheduling. Honestly, the time management piece is so important. And if you don't manage it, you burn out. And also, you have no fun because work ends up filling your whole schedule. Like, you will fill your work, you will fill your time with work if you don't have
Right.
something else there.
Well, and I think that that is the biggest take home lesson for, because I'd say most of my listeners probably aren't business owners, but some of them might be thinking about it. But everyone needs to know how to manage their life and how to manage their time. So I think that that's valid, and I think it's incredible. I want to talk to you about your morning routine because you have such a cute little routine that you share daily on Instagram. Tell me about that.
Yeah, honestly, it's very slow and it's very different. So I used to, prior to 2023, I would be up at probably 5:36, and then I'd work from like 6 a.m. until probably 9:30 or 10:30 p.m. at night. And like, granted, yes, I take breaks throughout, and AZ just gave me the face that I give myself. I'm like, that was terrible. But I will say now how it works is we have a very slow morning. So typically I'll wake up. Lately I've been waking up around 6:30, and I might choose to go to work, or I might just have coffee and sit in my chair and hang out. And then while Shantae walks Moose, I cook breakfast, and then we have breakfast together every day. So that's usually around 9 o'clock. And then around like 9:45, 9:50, Shantae will go over to the espresso machine and start making my iced coffee. And then Moose immediately knows, she just looked up, Moose immediately knows that my coffee is getting made. And then she will sprint upstairs when it's ready and dive bomb into the office and let me know that it's ready. And it's the cutest thing in the world. It's the best. She is my most valuable employee, letting me know my coffee's ready. But I get a coffee, and then it's work time.
I love seeing that routine on Instagram. And it's so funny because in 2019,
Oh my
I think it
God.
was
Yes.
2019, we at my fire district hosted Moving with the Maestro. And so Lex came out, Shantae came out, everyone stayed at my house. Okay. It was like a slumber party, but it was so funny because Lex and I would be up like laughing at the kitchen table at 5 a.m. doing work. And Shantae would roll out of bed like whatever time. Oh my God, do we have to leave? It was so funny. And I love that you've switched your routine a little bit. I have not yet switched mine.
I'll say, I don't think you've switched yours.
Not yet.
I feel
I
like you're just an early riser, but also I'm an early bed person.
so am I.
So I should be an early riser. I don't know. I die on volleyball days because we have to get up at like 5:55, 6 o'clock.
Oof.
And it's just so early. And
Eh,
before it's like, but also easy, like summer is easy because it's light.
yeah. The fact that Shantae gets up at 5:55 for volleyball just blows my hair back.
She loves volleyball.
Right. We will get up early for the things we love. Well, I want to just ask you, Lex, is there anything that we maybe should have talked about that we didn't talk about? Otherwise, we're going to talk more about Moose and then I'll let you go.
That's a big question. Um, hmm.
While Lex thinks about that, I'll tell you something cool that we came up with recently. I was like, Lex, I want to like make these shorty podcast episodes. Should we call them like shorts? What should we call them? And so Lex actually came up with the spotlight. She made me new podcast artwork. And then I
Yeah.
was like, who would be a better person to do the intros on the spotlights? That would be Lex.
So you'll be hearing my
And
voice every Thursday, yes?
did we decide
Did you
Thursday
do
or
Thursday?
Friday?
Are
I
you doing
can't
Friday?
remember.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't remember now.
We got to decide. Yep. So it's basically going to be little snippets from old podcast episodes, 10 minutes or less. Lex did the introductions. It is so awesome. Jeremiah's working on mixing that right now. So,
That makes me
yeah,
excited.
I think basically if something needs to be done in the world and you are a health and wellness professional, Lex is your person.
I appreciate
And I was
that.
just lucky enough to get in with Lex on the early days.
You did. Honestly, that was going to be the one thing I talked about. So it's so when you were talking about the logo and the website and gosh, that was 20 I think you were in 2018.
18. Yep.
Yeah, you were 2018. You were early cuz that was me mixing personal accounts with business accounts early. Like I was really early on. So I've been working with AZ for so long and obviously I'm endlessly appreciative, but the reason I was going to say we have to talk about that is because I don't know. I feel like AZ, you are the person, and I talk about this with Shantae a lot. Like you would give your shirt off to anybody, like literally take the shirt off your back and give it to anybody in need, and you would help anybody. And you're very altruistic, you're very kind. And I don't know who comes on here and says like how amazing you are, but I'm going to do it now. So if you're
Aw.
listening to this podcast and you've never actually had the opportunity to meet AZ in person, one, I would definitely try to do that. But also, two, I think it's really important to, when we work with a business, it's always nice to know that the business owner is a kind human. Like I genuinely can say that it's hard to work with it's hard to work with someone where you know the ownership is bad or they treat their employees bad. And AZ is incredible. AZ is a very kind human. She is the best. And I've worked with her for God, how many years is that, AZ? I'm doing math
The
in my
math is
head.
hard. 6.
It's almost 7 years. Yeah.
Yep.
6 years. And AZ is literally, she is just the most amazing person and will drop anything to help anyone. So if you have any question at all about whether or not you should work with AZ because, God forbid the business owner's bad, rest assured, AZ is wonderful. So if you haven't worked with AZ yet, please do that and you will see for yourself. But yeah, I wanted to
my
make sure I
goodness.
said that.
Thank you. I might cry, so I'm going to change the topic really quickly. We're going to change the topic back to Moosey. So Moose, we already talked about Moose. Lex's Labradoodle, right?
Golden Doodle.
Golden Doodle.
Yeah.
Moose is like gray, black, white, fuzzy.
Mhm.
But I remember when Lex was getting Moose, the videos of little Moose like bailing over the gate. Has her personality changed at all?
No, it hasn't. So the breeder sent me a video of Moose climbing over a gate and getting out so that she can be near her mom and be out of the kennel. The only thing that has changed is that she doesn't give a shit about me. So her person is Shantae, like 1000%. I think she worries about me and she wants to make sure I'm okay. But like her grounded person is definitely Shantae. But Moose's personality has not changed. And I just posted a video the other day. We have a Grinch on the top of our tree and Moose, we thinks it's a tennis ball or a toy. So she has been and still hasn't stopped. I ought to post an update on that. She has not stopped staring at that Christmas tree. So if we're downstairs, she'll just sit in front of it and stare at the Grinch on the top of the tree. But funny story, the other day I took a video and I was like, ha ha ha, so funny. Went up to my office and I heard a bunch of clinking. And did you see that? The clink with the pan? So I heard a bunch of clinking and it was a pan top. So it was flipped upside down and it was resting on the handle. So it would clink if you hit the side of it. So it was clinking on the counter. And I was like, what is that noise? So I walked downstairs. She is 2 paws on the counter, head so craned. So her neck is craned so much. She's a big dog, but she's not that big, craned over so that she could lick the pan top on the counter.
Moose.
And she was so bad. So bad. But yeah, she's been doing that recently, getting on the counters, and I am quite angry about it. But other than, I mean, but also the breeder said that the dogs who do that and they escape from the pen are usually very smart. So, I mean, very grateful. Like, I'm like, where's the Grinch? And she looks right up at the toy. So, like, I know that she's super smart, but it's also really annoying because you know that she knows what you're saying and then she chooses to ignore.
I remember when she was littler, you had the buttons that made the
Oh
word
yeah,
sounds.
she could still do it.
She can still that. That's amazing.
Well, it's so funny, Az, if you hold a toy and she wants it, right? You hold the toy, she's like, oh, you squeak it. She looks at you, squeak it a little bit more. She turns around and looks around the room for the button. So, because I don't have them active anymore, but she still will think like, where's that damn button so I can push play? Because I used to make her push play before I'd throw the toy. So if I won't throw it for her, you'll see her look around the living room and be like, where's that damn button? And sometimes there's actually a button that's in the bottom of her toy bin. And one time she was like in there trying to push it. So like she knows.
Sneaker.
Oh yeah, she knows. She's very, very smart, which is just, it's great, but also,
Yeah, that's annoying. Well, and when
yeah.
she first moved, there was some issues with Rupert, the Meowstro, who is a very fluffy big gray cat. But those problems have all worked themselves out, correct? They're besties now.
Well, not really. Moose thinks they're friends and Rupert just wants her to leave him alone.
Oh,
So she'll chase him, but he's not afraid of her. Like that's kind of the goal is like he no longer gives a shit. Like she'll walk over him and like he'll look up at her and it's fine. Some days he'll just run and not be a part of it. But we know that he's not afraid. And that was kind of
good.
like the big deal for us. It's like we just need to make sure Rupert's not afraid of her. And he's not. So I won't call it friends, but they're not like at each other's throats by any means. And we don't worry about their safety with Moose because we used to put Moose in a kennel when we left because we didn't know. And
Okay.
granted, like she likes her kennel, but we used to put her in that because we didn't know she was gonna like eat Rupert. Not that she ever would. Like she's no prey drive, but God forbid.
So what I'm hearing is that Moose remains being the most.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think you'll get to meet Rupert. He's too afraid. There'll be too many people, but you'll definitely get to meet Moose.
I'm so excited. Well, Alexis, I am so grateful that you agreed to be my New Year guest. Oh my gosh, words are hard. New Year guest. I love you from the bottom of my heart. You are one of my favorite people in the entire world. So grateful for you. I think we can drop the mic. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds great. I love you, Az. Thank you so much for having me. And also, anyone listening, I will see you on the spotlights.
Ooh, the spotlights. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Az and Lex are officially out.